And welcome to Boys Under the Hood, the podcast. James Stevenson, Pat Kelly, and it's Al Joyella. I'm going to have to write that down. I'm going to have to say that name in my head so I remember this. I've known Al for more than 15 years, and today I learned his last name. Go figure that out. We were just talking about sourcing parts and how challenging it can be to get parts in a timely fashion. And then when you can't get it on time, you have to explain to the customer, it is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. What happens when they send you the wrong part or a repackaged part? You ever come across that?
So repackaged parts. We've had a few instances, parts come in, cars apart, and it's either a broken part inside the box or it's a used part inside the box that somebody's obviously taken the new part out, put it in a vehicle, taken the old one, put it back in the box, and then returned it.
So how do they expect that you, as a pro, are just going to be like, oh, okay, it is what it is. I'm just going to go ahead and put this in my customer's vehicle, because that's liability on you as well.
Well, these parts, you can't put them back in the car.
It's
broken. Even brand new parts we're ordering, and water pump, take it out of the box, and there's a big crack in an aluminum housing. I'm like, you call and they're like, okay, it's going to be another day. I can't get another one because they don't have it in stock. So now you have to wait a day, car's on a lift, and you have to make the dreaded phone call to the customer.
Do you get a lot of people trying to bring in their own parts?
Yes. As of this year, it's been a lot lately. Not so much in the past, but lately, this year, we get those calls every single day. People shopping around, they want a price, and then you give them a price and they're like, well, I have the parts, can you just give me a price to put them in? Unfortunately, liability, I just won't put my name on it. I don't know what kind of parts they bought. I just don't feel comfortable putting that part in and then sending that product out. God forbid something happens, now you're the last person to touch it, it's on you.
Have you ever done it? Have you ever installed customer supplied parts?
I have, and it's bit us in the ass. So to put it bluntly, I just won't do it anymore. When we first started, we did.
Yeah.
And now it's not worth. I like to do the job once, and that's it. I don't want to
control it.
Right.
Yeah, you can't control it with their part.
Nope.
We've seen not many times, but in the past, the few times that we have done it, the part is either inferior quality or it's not the right fit. It's just a totally wrong part. The other thing that, I don't know if you see, but we get a lot of calls like this, and so this is at really any shop that I work with across the country. We get these, my mechanic already told me it's this. I just need a price to fix this. This widget, whatever it is. And you're like, well, what's going on with the car? Help me understand it. And as they begin to kind of break down what's wrong with the car, you're like, there's no way in hell that part is going to fix that issue on that car. And especially with you guys, because you're so niched down. Really all you work on is just, Mercedes, BMW, these really beautiful cars, but these, higher end European things. And, when you begin to see a lot of the same car, they all have a lot of the same habits and idiosyncrasies and everything else. And so when somebody calls you and they're like, I want to replace, my wiper blades to fix my check engine light, you're like, hold on a second. This is never like, let's slow down, Did you guys get a lot of that too?
Yeah, we do. We get it where I've gone to AutoZone, they've scanned it, this is what it needs. I'm like, okay, well, why do they say that's what it needs? So you get the whole story out of it. I'm like, I don't think it's gonna solve the issue that you're thinking it's gonna solve. So at that point, we'll have them come in, set up a time for them, we'll scan it, and I'll print out the whole scan on the whole car and explain to them. Because obviously you go to AutoZone, Napa or anything, they're gonna have generic scanners. It's just a regular OBD2 scanner that's just gonna kick out a code, and they're gonna give you a printout and say, this is what it is, replace it. And 9 out of 10 times it's not gonna solve the issue.
Because their job is to sell parts, their job is not to fix cars. And so without being disrespectful to any parts store, they just typically don't have top quality technicians working in a parts store selling parts, because they would own their own shop or be working in a shop somewhere normally.
And you also had a good analogy with the scanning, right? That scan, imagine a building, right? That scan will tell you what floor the problem's on, But now there's 50 rooms on the floor.
Yeah.
So you got to dive into it. It's not like they're pulling your car apart at the parts store. They're just basically plugging it in and saying, okay, this is kind of the area where your issue is. It can't be specific.
No, and so a lot of people too, and I don't know if you guys get this, but a lot of people think that like because we're professionals and we have some magical computer, that this computer will tell us everything. Exactly. It'll tell us, right? So the analogy I've used before, and that was great that you brought that up, was that a car is like a skyscraper in terms of computers, right? And so say you've got 100 floors. What the parts store is going to do is they're going to tell you, hey, look, your check engine light is on and there's a problem on the 57th floor. And so we normally sell parts that pertain to, you got 50 floors on each, 50 rooms in each floor. And our part here, normally people will replace this, and it's room number 47. Here, just replace these parts. And so what a real technician does is they say, hey, look, the issue is in, the 57th floor, but it's door 37. You walk in there 3 steps, you turn right, look down, and there's going to be the problem, hypothetically speaking, right? And there's a huge difference there, because the parts store is essentially throwing things at the wall to get them to stick. You have to go and spend all of your time trying to figure out how to change the thing, right? These people, they come in after they've been on YouTube and they've been to their buddy's garage that they pay with alcohol, and right? I mean, how many times do you see these cars come in after somebody else has been in there? You're like, my gosh, don't hurt the car anymore. Just, you know what I mean? Right. You feel bad for the car. So, do you guys get a lot of that where people come in and they have somewhat unrealistic expectations based around a capability that doesn't exist, like a computer that will automatically fortune tell?
Yes and no. Well, they seem to think that the generic scanners, just like you said, we get customers coming in, well, I scanned it, this is what it is, can you replace it? I'm like, I don't think it's gonna work that way. So we'll scan it, obviously huge price difference in scanners, and I'll have them with me, that way they can see everything, then we can physically talk about it. And if they still wanna replace that part, I'm like, it's on you, but I don't think it's gonna solve the issue.
Yeah, we won't even do it. We won't do it. We won't put in a part that we can't verify is faulty.
Right. Well, you have to verify it first. I mean, and most people will start to agree with you once you start talking to them.
Yeah.
But there's some that, well, I just want this piece replaced. And I'm like, well, it's not going to solve your issue. And then you're going to blame me that the light's still on. So, no.
And what people focus more on value now than ever before. I read some statistic a couple weeks ago, and it was saying that this month, October 2023, that 99% of Americans will have depleted their savings, right? Things are at an all-time high cost, and to borrow money, it's at, I don't know that an all-time high cost, but a pretty damn high cost, to do that. And so people are more concerned with value than ever. And so some of the shops that I talk to, they get a lot of pushback surrounded around the topic of charging for testing, charging for your time, all of your experience that you have to find these issues. Plus, I mean, how much is your Mercedes scan tool? 18,000, 20,000?
So that one is 40 grand.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. Yeah, $40,000 versus a scanner probably the size of this recording device that is $80 that the parts store will plug in. Right. And then they look up common fixes as opposed to what is actually happening in real world. And so when you apply that logic, right, it makes sense that a technician would have to charge, a shop would have to charge for that proper experience. Do you guys find a lot of pushbacks around why do you have to charge me to tell me what's wrong with the car?
We do it. We do get those calls. How much is it to diagnose and, all that stuff. There's a bunch of questions. Well, why am I getting charged for diagnostics? Well, I have to figure out what's wrong with the car. I can't just start wasting your money. I mean, we're just not a parts, I'm not somebody that's just gonna throw parts at a car.
Yeah.
I can't, and people don't understand. Once you buy an electronic part, you can't return it.
Yeah, you own it.
So you own it.
Yeah.
So why am I gonna start throwing all these parts at it to guess at what's gonna fix the car?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we go down the route, diagnose it, and fix it right, as opposed to just throw parts at it? Because parts today, they're not cheap. So
and we already touched on it, they're hard to get too. And so now you've waited 3 days for the wrong part, and then you put this wrong thing in with no testing, it doesn't fix it. Now you own it, and you're 3 days in with the customer's car, and you're nowhere.
Right.
So have you had a situation where you'll take the time, excuse me, to figure out what the issue is, and then you tell the customer this is what it's going to be, and then they're like, well, I'm not interested. I think I can do it somewhere cheaper. But then you still want to be paid for your time. How do you reconcile that?
That's a tough one. So I try to. That's a tough one. Good question, but I mean, it depends on how much time you have into it. If you got 3 hours into it, do you cut your losses and at least keep the customer happy? You know, come to some kind of agreement. It took me 3 hours. I'll meet you down the middle. Give me this. You know, that way they're happy. I mean, you're still not, you know, as happy, but you save face. That customer may come back at a later date for something else and get it done with you.
And I think that's a good way to do it. I had a similar situation with an outboard motor that I brought to a guy. His guys took it apart. They couldn't figure out what the problem was. Then finally he took it apart, couldn't figure out what the problem was. And now they have 6, 7, 8 hours in. The motor's a piece of shit. I don't want it back. He can't get it running. But I actually felt bad for the guy. I'm like, well, I need to pay you something, and you've spent an entire day pulling this thing apart. But that's, like, to me, it's because I'm rational, right? I realize that there's a value to his time, and not just the fix. I think people, they have in their minds that, like, you snap your fingers and it's fixed. Like the 2 hours you took digging around to find the problem is, oh, that's on you, Al. You know, you got that. You can just do that for free. You go ahead and you finance that diagnostic $40,000 tool and just do that for free. Yeah. But I think that's fair to at least ask for something. How do you do that at your shop? If you spent a couple hours trying to find a problem and then you tell them, okay, this is what it's going to cost you to fix it. Well, how do you get them to pay for the time that you put in?
It really depends. So our shops, and then the model that I teach is obviously when a customer comes in that we want approval for, if it's general testing, check engine light or something, we call it level 1 testing, right? We don't really call it diagnostics anymore because that's not really what it is. We have to test a lot of different things, and I don't know, I just think the name testing sounds better. So what we do is we test things, right? So if you bring your car in for your check engine light, level 1 testing. So one of the things that we have is a customer loyalty program where everybody has like little stickers. You even have like,
ride around.
Yeah, you're OG. You've been riding around one for a long time.
All day,
so
man.
Our existing customers, we don't charge for testing for the first hour, nothing at all, right? And so we generally spend about 45 to 50 minutes actively testing to figure out what is going on, and hopefully in that time we can pinpoint it, right? And sometimes we can't, and we need more time. So in any event, that either gives us the ability, that first hour gives us the ability to determine exactly what's wrong or determine that we need more time and what the path is. And then from there we call the client and we best advise the client with the information that we have. And so our shops are just slightly different than yours to where we have service advisors. And so the technician will document all of his findings and document everything that he sees. We actually, all of our techs use their phones all day long. It doesn't mean that they're on their phones talking to anybody, but we just decided to not try to fight the battle with everybody, because as we begin to hire this younger generation of people, your dad would be probably fucking appalled if somebody was on their phone during the day, right? Because he's of that generation that we learned from. And those were guys that when we were coming up, they were like, show up, do your work, and you get paid on Friday. And that's how you know you did a good job. Maybe they'll give you a pat on the back here and there, whatever. But when I was coming up, you knew that you did a good job because you got paid, you didn't get fired, and nobody called you a fucking moron. Right? And that was basically it. And so now we have to do things a little bit differently. And and the customer approach is totally different as well, right? So we don't try to pick the battle with technicians. Have your phone on you, because we want you to use it to look up information too. And so all of our shop management software is all right on that. So they take a picture, they'll take a video, and so it really helps the advisor with their job by actually painting a picture of what we have found, what we have done, and it helps us with this, when people think you just hook up a computer, they don't want to pay for it. When you begin to show them the process and show them their engine apart and show them the things that you've taken off. I mean, how many covers on an X5M? How many covers you got to lift off to get to these back coils if the thing's misfiring? It takes you half hour just to access it. Never mind now all of a sudden, hey Pat, you need this coil. I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it somewhere cheaper. Now I got another half hour just to put the plastics back together that have nothing to do with the way that the vehicle runs. It's all aesthetics, you know, and so you have to put all these, I got an hour into it just to pull plastic off and just to put plastic back on. It'd be insane not to charge the time, because, you know, we've talked about it before. Bays bay spaces are rental properties, right? Every single bay is a rental property. Mm-hmm. And so you are billing that thing out by the hour. And if you are not constantly turning that bay and constantly billing, you're losing money instantly. And so for us, we'll use that first hour and our way of documenting it to be as transparent as possible, obviously, you know, and all of this goes with saying that the people that we hire and the people that you train and the people that you retain are ethical, right? They're honest, ethical people all the time, right? We hire them based on their attitude, aptitude, and ethics, and then we bring out the best in them. So, you know, when we have these people, and, you know, we have these systems and we have this transparency in our repair process, it makes it easier for us to explain, hey, Pat, hey, Alfonze, you know, like, we need an extra hour, we need 2 hours, right? Or here's the manufacturer's diagnostic flow chart, and it says that we need to do steps 1, 2, and 3, and if we find that this thing is janky or this thing is messed up, then we need to go to step 5, and step 5 means that we now need to open up your engine. We need to figure this out, and so we just make sure that the customer is informed every step of the way, and then we bill for our time. And when there's that gray area, you have to sit down with your people and say, what do you think that we should do with this? And then you sit down with the customer and you say, hey, look, this is where we're at, this is what we've done, and we can't fix your problem. That is the worst call in the world to make to a customer. I have spent all of this time and I now cannot fix your issue. And so if it's a service that we cannot provide, then we take it on the chin. Mm-hmm. If it's a service that we can provide and they choose not to do it, hey man, you went into this with informed consent, right? Like, I don't know how many times you've had it, but we've had one recently at one of my shops in Pennsylvania. And so they had a customer that came in with an aftermarket warranty that they had purchased from the dealer when they purchased the vehicle, right? Dealer says, you have to buy these aftermarket piece of shit warranties that nobody should get, right? Right. You pay $3,000. The only person making any money and benefiting from that is the finance manager that is selling that piece of crap warranty, right? Those warranties do not want to pay for anything. They are a nightmare for guys like us to deal with them. And shops in general now will say, we won't even service the things because it is such a headache, and they demean you, they destroy any semblance of profit that you would ever think that you could make, and it makes it unrealistic to do the job. And people don't want to talk about profit, right? But you can't afford a $40,000 scanner unless you are pricing your jobs in a profitable manner and staying competitive in your market, whether that's through value or pricing. You know, and so, you know, when you start to look at like all of these things just kind of as a whole, you really just, I guess you want to be sure that like you have the right people, you're informing your customers, you're keeping your people in the loop, and then from there it's just what is best for the customer, what is best for us, right? It's not always just about profit, because the customer coming in a longer term is better than having one big repair that you can get done today. And sometimes unethical shops will find their way into that, right? How many shops have you seen come and go that you've heard terrible things about through the years? A lot. And probably one is closing today somewhere, you know, and even in our area, there are, I would say probably what in our area, maybe probably 5 or 6 like really premier shops, mm-hmm. right? And so obviously, you know, you're one of them, Precision's one of them, you know, there's a few others, V&F and Agawam, great shop, you know, some other really, really good shops in the area, and all of us play by the same rules, right? Provide a really, really high quality product to our customer in a very realistic time frame and treat them well. Right. You guys don't even advertise. Nope. You guys never advertise. And we were just talking about it earlier. You don't even have a website.
No.
You don't even care to. You know.
Now, almost all of ours is word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, we're such in a small niche of cars that we work on. We just kind of specialized in that one and just went that route, and just it stuck.
Yeah.
It worked for us.
So what do you do? How do you approach your business to get people to want to do business with you? Like how do you nurture them to the point where they now become a repeat customer? What is it about what you do in your shop that makes you different?
So I'm I wear multiple hats in the business. So I'm face to face with the customer. If we see a problem with the car, I'm willing to bring them into the shop. Yeah, your car's on a lift. I want to show you this. This is what we're looking at, and we basically discuss everything. And I'm not, I'll spend 15, 20 minutes with the customer, answer all their questions, whatever they need. I'll answer it the best of my ability. If I can't answer it, I'll find out a way to answer it.
Yeah.
Because obviously I don't know everything. There's got to be other people out there, whether it's somebody at the dealer or whatnot, that I can ask questions and then come back to the customer.
Do you find like the customer climate has changed a little bit over the past few years?
Yep.
And how so? How do you see that?
Obviously now with some of our customers, it's a different type of customer. Some of them don't have patience, some of them still do. So you kind of got to change the way you think and try to come, not so much, just tell them how it is, but people today don't have patience. Like, they don't want to wait. They want everything done now. They want you to drop what you're doing now to do their stuff. And unfortunately, reality has to set in at some point. You can't just drop everything to appease one person.
And so how do you do that? Just by setting expectations very early on?
Yeah, I'm upfront with people. As soon as they call, I'm like, you get a phone call, can you do this, this, and this in a car? I ask what type of car it is. I can't program. No longer we don't do any program with Japanese cars or anything like that. So I'm like, I can't. If it's something that needs programmed, I can't do it. Just gonna be upfront with you. Just can't do it. Anything internal, won't do anymore either. I'll have to refer them to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Yeah, I was explaining earlier, and then ended up on a different road. But so we had an aftermarket warranty at a shop in Pennsylvania that we own, and this guy came in. He had a van, and the van was you could hear that there was something that had let go inside the engine. And these warranty companies want the guy will come in and they think that the shop is just gonna do it, and the warranty company's just gonna pay because that is what some salesman had told them, so that they could make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 off these warranties. And so now they bring it into the repair shop. Hey, the thing's making noise. I got this warranty. They're gonna cover the whole thing. Okay, perfect. So you begin to look at this and you determine that you have to go inside the engine to figure out what's wrong, right? If it was your customer's car and they were paying for it, you would always feel confident enough to know, hey, look, you got metal shavings and metal chunks inside the engine. We've drained it. There's something wrong here. We can get you a new engine or used engine. It's got to go. Warranty company says, no, you have to pull the engine apart until you find the point of failure. So you have to put the part in your hand that has failed, whether it be a rod bearing or whatever it be. And so now you've got to disassemble the engine. Now who pays for that? Not the warranty company.
Nope, it won't.
Warranty company makes you get authorization from the client. So I got to call you and say, hey, Pat, I know you have this warranty, but you now need to pay us to remove the engine or tear this engine down to the point of failure, and it's going to take us 5-6 hours. And all that is going to do is leave us with an engine in pieces. And if they don't cover it, then it's up to you to put the engine back together and push it out. Isn't that crazy?
I mean, let's call it what it is. It's not a warranty company. It's an insurance company.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it is. And it's the same thing, right? So you pay for the coverage. And if you've ever had to try to file a claim, whether it's for your home or your car, they fight you tooth and nail. I had a friend of mine whose house got whacked all the way to the ground by the tornado 10 years ago. And they wanted an inventory of his pants.
Your pants?
They wanted inventory of his pants, his shirts, his clothes, his shoes, all the way down. Because they don't stay in business by paying out claims.
Yeah.
That's not how they stay in business. They stay in business by not paying out claims.
This guy ended up in a situation where when we had taken the engine apart, that he had bought the vehicle, it was a used vehicle, moderately high mileage, over 100,000 miles, and it hadn't been maintained properly. He had the vehicle for about 6 months. The warranty had expired at the place that he had bought it from. Engine failed. When he brought it to us, we took it apart. We found that literally, the lower end of the engine had failed. And it was more cost effective to replace the engine. So we called the warranty company, and they send out an inspector, and they found that there was just some sludge inside the engine. They denied the guy's claim. They will not pay it. And so then you call the customer and you say, they're not paying it. And now you're on the hook.
Yep.
You know, so that is a very challenging call to make. You know, if you have any, semblance of remorse for your customer, right? It's a very challenging call to make. Fuck, I gotta call Pat and tell him not only is his warranty not paying for any of this now, he needs to pay for the time to take the thing out that he already knew, but it still sucks, right? Because if it had to come out and the warranty company was going to pay for it, then great, then you know that labor is covered for the most part. Yeah, but then now he's got to pay for us to disassemble this thing, which we didn't need to do in the first place. And now he's got to also pay for the job, whatever engine that he's going to need, and he paid for this warranty that is not going to cover anything. It's terrible. Like it's an that's one of the worst parts in our industry. One of the worst parts for me, anyways. You know.
Yeah, the aftermarket warranty companies, 90% of them are just not worth it.
Yeah.
They're gonna fight you every which way just not to pay.
Yeah.
We had almost a similar situation. We had a customer buy a car. It was fine for 6 months or so. All of a sudden starts blowing smoke out the tailpipes. Take off the airbox and it's full of oil. Try to find out where the oil's coming from. So took it apart, cleaned it. Week later, full of oil again. Something's not right. Take the breather off. Somebody had opened up one section of the engine and sealed off up to a port that they weren't supposed to seal. Now you pull off the cam covers and the cam is chewed apart. And her aftermarket insurance company said it was a lack of maintenance. And they wouldn't cover a new engine.
Wow. It's terrible. It's terrible. And so now some of those aftermarket warranties, we're finding that they'll want to put in used parts.
Yep.
We had one alternator had failed. It was a very expensive alternator, actually on a Mercedes, and they wanted to send us a used one. We said no. And they wanted to pay like $35 an hour labor. I can't even get a tech to work on the car, loaded wage, right? So a lot of people don't know what loaded wage is, but you have to pay taxes and insurance and Medicare, and so, you know what I mean? You have to pay all of this stuff. It's a loaded wage. And so the load is normally whatever his wage is plus about a quarter, right? 25% above his hourly wage. And so, you know, we're factoring that in. I can't even get a guy to work for that amount, right? And in general, in our industry, there is this like race to the bottom. All of these shops are all trying to be the cheapest, right? I gotta be the cheapest. I'm not gonna pay my guy shit. I'm not really gonna help him. And then I don't know why I can't find guys. Like, you can't have it both ways. You have to, if you want to have really, really good staff, you've got to pay them a very livable wage so that they can pay for their food and their house and all the things that they want. But these guys, they also want to have a little bit of fun, and tools are expensive, and you know, so they've like, I don't want the guy that doesn't want things working for me either. You know, if somebody has no ambition, they have no place in any of my companies. They have to want things. They have to have goals. That's one of our things that we even do in our first interview. And then all of our you know, initially monthly and then quarterly, like, what are your goals? How have you gone forward in trying to achieve these things? What are your 1-year goals? What are your 5-year goals? And we make sure that people hit them. You want to get a house? You want to get a different type of car? You want to go on a special vacation? Like, we hold you accountable as employers. We hold you accountable. Like, okay, so, you know, have you saved? I haven't saved shit. All right, well, you know, right? Like, you're 6 months into your 1-year goal and you haven't saved $1 yet. Right. You know? Right. What can we do, right? And so, you know, we try to use any contacts that we have to you know, help people. If you're trying to get a house, we have friends or our banking relationships or whatever. And so we try to make sure that, like, you're giving them, like you talked about it earlier, you're giving them more reason than just money to stay with you. You know, it's relationships, and you guys do a tremendous job at that because you don't market at all, and your shop has for almost 20 years been packed with cars.
You ought to see
forever.
how many cars are at the shop every day. And to your credit, I see you outside talking to customers and looking under hoods with the customer and spending time with them. So that's a big deal. Yeah, James mentioned racing to the bottom and coming up with the lowest price. Obviously, you know, the world's a competitive place. How do you stay afloat without being tempted to do that?
So I basically figure out what your overhead is, you know, what computers you have, and all that stuff. And I just base it off of that. Obviously dealership's gonna be much more expensive, they have bigger overhead, but you know, we're still below them, but I mean, I can't be the cheapest one out there. There's obviously shops that are out there cheaper.
Right.
You know, what parts are they using and all that stuff, that I don't know. I can't, you know, people come in and we're like, well, I can get this part for this amount of money. I'm like, okay, I get it. Yes, it is cheaper, but who's it manufactured by? What's the reputation of the part? Is it gonna fail? I'd rather just buy a name brand from Mercedes, Bosch, or, you know, Vallejo, whatnot. Yeah, you're gonna spend the extra money, but God forbid we have a warranty issue that we've done a job. I call the manufacturer, they send me another one, I take it out, I send the old bad part back and call it a day.
Solved.
Right.
Thanks for joining us today for the Boys Under the Hood podcast. Al from G&A Automotive in East Long Meadow, the best in the import car business, man. And I'm not saying that because I'm your friend. I'm saying that because I see the number of cars in your parking lot every single day.
Thank you.
And I see you moving them out quick. You guys bust your asses. It's really something to see. And thanks for helping us. So they're our neighbor, and help us occasionally with our stuff when we have stupid shit happening to our cars in the adjacent parking lot. James Stevenson, owner of Precision Auto Repair, 9 years running the best shop in West Springfield, voted by his customers. Also 18 years in the business. Obviously, you've learned a lot, and so have you, Al, right? I mean, it's always a learning process.
Absolutely,
yeah.
every day.
I want to thank our sponsors, Lotus Business Solutions. When you're talking about things like systems for your business to make it more profitable, things like retaining employees, things like recruiting the right employees, and office management and business management, and the bottom line, Lotus Business Solutions can help you out there.
If you have an auto repair shop, you find that you are just stressed. I can't do this anymore, right? At the end of the day, I'm not making enough money. I'm having all of these headaches. I'm having upset customers because I feel like nothing can go right. You need to call us. You need to call us. LotusPE.us. You know, you can find us online there and you can learn a little bit more about us, but you should not be that stressed to the point that you're not seeing your family, you're not making it home for family dinner, you're working all hours, you're working weekends, you're going nuts, and you're not making anything. There's no satisfaction in your life. This should be something that you really enjoy doing it, because that's why we started doing it, right? Because we like dealing with people, right? We like working with people and building these relationships, and we like working on cars. We're good with our hands. And so if you feel that you've lost that passion, you think that there's a better way, we can help you find that better way. We've done it, we do it, we've systematized it, right? It's like we can do it. You need to reach out to us. LotusPE.us.
Lotus Media can help you spread the word as well and help you come up with a concise message to help build your business. And lastly, Lotus Financial. If you're going home at the end of a long day and doing your books, don't. Lotus Financial can help you. You let the book people do that stuff. You do what you do. Lotus Financial can help you there. LotusPE.us for all of it. And Al, thanks for joining us for today's
Thanks
Boys
for
Under the
having
Hood,
me.
man.